Police officers deal with all kinds of strange calls that they have to attend to. From petty crimes such as shoplifting or disturbing the peace to more serious crimes like kidnapping and bank robberies. But some police officers have experienced scary mysteries while on duty when a seemingly normal day turns into a paranormal police case. But before we keep going, I need to tell you guys about today's sponsor. If you've got a smartphone, you most likely already know that the App Store can be flooded with shooters. But Mech Arena is much different from the others. This is a 5v5 mech shooter that lets you take control of a mech and take out your enemies. The game is beautiful to look at and will run smoothly on almost any device. The best part about this game is that you can customize almost everything to truly express yourself. There are so many unique skins and paint jobs to choose from, as well as loads of interesting mechs to collect. You can open fortune vaults as well to get some amazing new mech skins. My personal favorite mech is actually the most common, Paragon. This mech is quick to move, easy to upgrade, and generally lots of fun, though Lancer is pretty great too. You can customize your weapon combinations as well, choosing to upgrade your weapons or leave them stock. The more you upgrade, the better your mech will perform. Over time, you can even collect new weapons to beef up your mech, or just choose to stick with the autocannon. It's totally up to you. There are always new events taking place all throughout the month that will let you get loads of cool stuff and many new weapons. Right now, the disc launcher is the hottest new weapon available. If that wasn't enough, there are special Halloween events to take part in too, with loads of special Halloween skins to collect. There are also new login rewards that you won't want to miss. The greatest thing about Mech Arena is that it's totally free to play and can be downloaded on both Android and iOS right now. You can use my personal QR code to get one Forest digital skin, as well as 200 A coins and 10,000 credits to help get yourself started. And if you're quick about joining, you can even add me as a friend and we can play a few matches together. So what are you waiting for? Download Mech Arena today and get ready to have a blast. Number 5. Jamie Dube is a former patrol officer from Maine and one of the founding members of East Coast Ghost Trackers. While he was still a patrolman, however, he experienced a scary paranormal mystery on Indian Island at an area called The Pond. While he was driving around, he saw a woman emerging from the pond area, dressed in all-white clothing. At first, he thought that she may be a hospital worker who was on her way to her car or to work. He decided to call it in, stating that he would be there for a while, and as he sat in his car, the woman walked ever closer to him. At this point, she was about 25 feet away from his vehicle, and he started to feel uneasy, thinking that he should probably get out of the car to investigate. But in the next instant, she was right in front of his car, looking straight at him. He realized that she didn't seem to have any facial features, as if her face was blurred, and she seemed to be floating rather than walking. Then, inexplicably, she disappeared. He jumped out and looked all around, as well as under his car, but there was no sign of the woman. He returned to his vehicle and radioed dispatch, stating that he was on his way in and that he had some questions. He would later be told by the dispatch operator that he had seen a woman known as the White Lady. They explained that it's the spirit of a woman who's often seen at the pond, and there's a belief that if you tell her a wish, she would grant it. Dube went back to the pond on several occasions, but never saw the White Lady again. Number 4. On the 8th of August, 2016, a mother and son from Scotland contacted police after they suffered a series of terrifying encounters with what they described as a supernatural force. They told police that they contacted them because they had become panicked and didn't know where else to turn. Officers who responded to the call at Stonelaw Road initially assumed that the incident was related to a mental health issue, But when they entered the house, they realized that they were dealing with an actual paranormal case. As they entered the house, officers witnessed lights throughout rooms in the house going off, and when they came back on, the lampshades had inexplicably been turned upside down, without anyone being near them. They also saw oven doors opening by themselves, and clothes flying across one of the rooms as if being thrown by an invisible force. The family's pet dog, a Chihuahua, which had been playing outside in the garden when they arrived, was found standing on a 7-foot-high hedge. A police source later explained that they were baffled by the incident and had no idea where to go since no crime was committed. All they could do was follow up on any further reports of disturbances. They further stated that police officers with more than 20 years of experience have said that they've never experienced anything like the incident before, and that they were struggling to get their heads around it. Since they could find no reasonable explanation for what they saw, officers contacted a Catholic church who sent a priest to the house to bless it. The family has since left the scary house, and police were looking into the history of the building to determine whether similar incidents had happened in the past. Number 3. On Friday, the 6th of March, 2015, Jennifer Grosbeck and her 18-month-old daughter, Lily, had been visiting with her parents in Salem, Utah, and were making their way back to their home in Springville. The following morning, her father, Chad, woke up early and unexpectedly was feeling like something was wrong. He couldn't call Jennifer as her phone was broken, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to go and find her. And so he climbed into his car and traveled to Springville. But when he reached her house, he saw that her car wasn't there and knew his instincts had been right. He then backtracked to Jennifer's house, driving the roads that she would have likely taken, and to his despair, came upon a scene that made his heart drop. Jennifer's car was upside down in the Spanish Fork River, where it had been discovered by a local fisherman. The man alerted police, and when they arrived, they believed it was a possible case of an abandoned vehicle. But as they moved closer to the car, they noticed someone inside and quickly moved to flip the car over. But before they could reach the vehicle, they heard a woman's voice calling out for help from inside, and they rushed over to get the car right side up again. Inside, they found Jennifer and Lily, who was still strapped into the seat of her car, just inches above the freezing water. Jennifer, however, had passed away on impact, and it would later be determined that she lost control of the car before plunging into the river. Lily would go on to make a full recovery, despite spending nearly 14 hours upside down in freezing conditions. The 7 first responders were, however, baffled at the female voice that they all heard crying out for help as they approached the car. When they visited with Jennifer's family, they explained what they had heard, and her brother Garrett explains that he believes it was Jennifer calling out for Lily to be saved. Number 2. The Rendlesham Forest Incident is a documented paranormal case that occurred between the 26th and 28th of December, 1980, near the Rendlesham Forest in England. Since that day, it's still regarded as the most famous claimed UFO event in the history of the United Kingdom, and remains one of the most baffling reported UFO incidents in the world. While stationed as a senior security officer at a former U.S. Air Force facility called RAF Bentwaters, Sergeant Jem Peniston and his air police team were called out to investigate reports of unexplained lights in the forest. And at first, they assumed that it must have been an airplane that had crashed. But when they arrived at the scene, they discovered a strange triangular craft resting on 3 legs in a small clearing. He described it as about 9 feet long and 6.5 feet high. And as they approached it, the radio equipment started acting up, and they switched to a communications relay system. Peniston and Airman First Class Edward Cabansag decided to inspect the craft more closely, and they noticed blue and yellow lights swirling around on its surface. They also noticed that the air around them and the strange object seemed to have an electric charge to it. He explained that they could all feel the static charge in their clothes, skin, and hair, and that nothing in his training had prepared him for what they were witnessing. He further described the craft as having strange symbols about 3 inches high and 2 feet long, etched into its surface, and when he touched it, it felt like warm metal. He made notes and took photographs of what he saw, but when the photographs were returned from the photo lab, they were all blurred. About 45 minutes after the strange sighting, the light that was emanating from it started to grow more intense, and as they ran for cover, it soundlessly lifted off the ground, maneuvered through the trees, and accelerated away at unbelievable speed in full view of more than 80 policemen who had been assigned to the security police squadron. In the blink of an eye, it had disappeared, and he added to his notebook the comment, "Speed impossible." Penniston would later state that this was by no means like any type of aircraft he had seen before. All the information that was collected at the site was reported to the military through the proper channels, and Penniston's team, as well as all other witnesses, were told to treat it as top secret, and that no further discussion on the matter was allowed. Number 1. Teresa Basa was born and raised in the Philippines and would go on to graduate from Assumption College in Manila, Spain. She then relocated to the United States, where she studied at Indiana University, earning a master's degree in music. She would eventually go on to become a respiratory therapist, and by the time she was 47 years old in 1977, she was living in Chicago while working at Edgewater Hospital. On the 21st of February of that year, she finished her shift at the hospital and went back to her apartment. There, she spoke to her friend, Ruth Loeb, on the phone for about 20 minutes before saying that she had to go since she was getting ready for a visit from a man. At around 8:40 p.m., fellow tenants thought they could smell smoke, but couldn't find where it was coming from. They decided to phone the building's janitor, and he immediately contacted the fire department. When firefighters arrived, they found that the smoke was coming from Teresa's apartment, and they forced the door open. They were able to contain the fire in a matter of minutes, but found that it had been started intentionally, as Teresa was found deceased under a mattress. Her life ended with a bleed. Detectives determined that the perpetrator had lit the fire to destroy any evidence that may have been left behind. There were clear signs that a struggle had taken place, but they couldn't tell whether anything had been stolen. The only vague clue that was found was a note that Teresa had written, saying, "Get theater tickets for AS." Police interviewed her friends and colleagues, but were unable to find any further helpful information until July, when they were asked to speak to a doctor called Joe Chua. Chua explained that his wife, Remy, had been having strange dreams about Teresa. At first, she tried to ignore them, but on one occasion while she was sleeping, she started speaking to Chua in a female voice that wasn't her own. She stated that she was Teresa Basa, and that she had been murdered by a man called Alan Showery. He had come to her apartment to fix her TV, but ended her life instead, and she pleaded for Chua to go to the police with this information. When his wife showed up, she had no memory of the incident, and Chua decided not to contact police. The next week, it happened again. Only this time, Teresa was angry and demanded to know why he hadn't done as she had asked. He stated that he needed proof before contacting police, and she stated that Showery had stolen some of her jewelry and given it to his girlfriend. After a thorough investigation, it was found that Showery, who also worked at Edgewater, had indeed promised to fix Teresa's TV, and he had planned to rob her as he needed rent money. After ending her life, he found only $30 in her apartment and stole her jewelry instead. Police interviewed his girlfriend and realized that she was wearing the stolen items as they spoke. Teresa had solved her own scary mystery, and Showery was given a sentence of 22 years in prison. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knots, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.